Hallelujah, hallelujah. Good afternoon, good morning, good night, good evening. Wherever you are, whatever time it is there, um, the time is now. The time is now. Welcome to Voice in the Wilderness. I am your host. Today, we are going to continue in this series. This series, Father Knows Best. There's a bunch of ways you could swing this. Father knows best, and Father knows who is best. and, a father should know best. A human father. A human father is put in a position, he is in a position to know what's best for his son, for his sons, for his children. And I know we talk about fathers and sons predominantly, but that doesn't mean that I'm deliberately excluding girls, right? But if you've listened to me at any given point, you know that I believe that God is no respecter of persons. And the same respect God has on the father as the head of the household, he has as he has on the mother as the helper to the head of the household. And my heart goes out to mothers out there who are doing it alone, per se. And my heart goes out there to fathers who are doing it alone, per se. There are fathers out there who have been reckless and irresponsible, and so have there been mothers, and so this channel, this ministry is not about casting blame. I'm not here to attack anybody because of anything, whether it's skin color, belief, thought, ideology, or whatever. Doesn't matter. That's not what this ministry functions by. All right. Our goal, our primary goal, our sole objective is to get you to see things from God's perspective, because this is how we try to see things, from God's perspective. And you may hear me saying things. You may hear me talking about Christianity and Judaism and Jews and Christians, and none of that matters. What matters more than anything is that you understand. I'm here to speak what thus saith Jehovah, what thus saith God, what thus saith the Lord. And that's what I will speak. If it sounds offensive, then I challenge you to think again, to look at what we're talking about. Not look at me per se, but look at the topic, look at what we are talking about, and look at what we are trying to point out, what we are trying to show. Look into your own heart and see, maybe perhaps that the things that you think in, the way that you feel, may be coming from within, and not necessarily from me or from this ministry, right? We are above nobody, but we stand beneath nobody. The only entity we stand beneath is God. He is the sole entity that we subscribe to in terms of all power, all wisdom, all knowledge. And so that's where we stand. Okay? So like I was saying, we have been in this teaching about Father Knows Best. It started on Father's Day. And I told a story about how I came about the topic. And we are, Father's Day was June 19th, somewhere there. We are already in July, almost 4 weeks ahead, 3 weeks of this. I think this is the third week, maybe third or the fourth, maybe the fourth week. But and I'm gonna just let me verify that. Let's see here, calendar. Where's our calendar? I need a car. Oh, there it is. Let's see, right? It's July 10th today. We started July 19th, Father's Day. So that's Father's Day. Then the 26th, then the 3rd, the 4th. Last week was Independence. That's 3. So this is the 4th week. We 4th week and 4th teaching, if you will, that we into this topic. Father knows best. And like I've said, most of our topics go on for some time, and it's like that because it's very hard. I would venture to say, impossible to really talk about God, talk about any topic with God or in God, in the scripture, and cover it in one pass, or in 2 passes, or in 3 passes, or even 4 passes, or even in 12 passes, as we have done in times past. Okay, but you get my point. It's I would venture to say impossible, because we're talking about the living, breathing, effervescent, lively, energetic, all-knowing, all-consuming fire. We're talking about this God who is living, right? And how do I know that? I know that because I've had a couple experiences. I've had some experiences with this Creator. We just so you know, we are in the topic, Father knows best. A father who should know best. The Father who knows who should know best, right? Father knows best really is ideal because it covers the whole gambit. Him, and if you're a father, I encourage you. You should know. You should know what's going on in your neighborhood, in your family especially. Okay, especially with your kids. And we talk about that in prior 3 lessons. I remember, what year was that? It's been a while. 95, 94 maybe? Somewhere around there. It was carnival season. And I was a big party person. I love to have fun. I still do. That part of it. I still love to have fun. Joy it's a fruit of the Spirit. So joy it encompasses fun, right? Now I want to have wholesome joy, wholesome fun, wholesome. Everything I do is on the wholesome side, right? I still want to have absolute fun, but on the wholesome side. Laugh a lot, have a lot of fun, integrated into every aspect of my life. Laugh at myself, laugh at people, laugh at situations, at people, places, and things, because it depends on how you look at it. It could be very funny. Comedians develop that skill. They have it. Some of them naturally. Some of them they get tutors, or they teach themselves, or however. But that's how comedians survive, right? They find the laughter, they find the joy, they find the fun part of everything in life, good, bad, and ugly, right? And I have nothing against them for that. So, 1 me and my whole group of us, from friends that I sang with, we went to this party, and in this party, or going to this party, I had a date. You know what a date is, and she was living far from where I lived. She was like far, and not in the direction of where the party was either. And the party was far too. So I guess you could say it like this: where she lived and where I lived and where the party was, he formed a triangle, right? So I had to, being the gentleman that I was, I would go pick her up at her house, and then we went to the party. We had a blast, right? And on my way, I had to take her back home, right? And something happened that night that bothered me for a lot of years, until God got a hold of me. And I remember that night distinctly because of what happened. I was driving, and this road I was on was a 4-lane highway divided by a median in the middle. 2 lanes going south, 2 lanes going north, right? Opposite directions, but 2 lanes on this highway. And it was early hours of the morning. I was extremely tired. We were both extremely tired. And on the way home, to take her home, the car that I was driving, which was my own car, I fell asleep. And I'm telling the story in hindsight, okay? And we all know hindsight is 20/20. When you experience something, you explain that thing in 20/20 vision. You see, you're able to tell the story in hindsight. Every single detail, because you can, especially if you can recall the story, right? So I was on my way to her house to drop her off, and she was sleeping, and eventually I fell asleep. And I was driving, fell asleep, and how I know I fell asleep is because we ran off the road. Again, hindsight, right? How I know I ran off the road, because I woke up when I felt the car vibrating tremendously in a violent way. I remember I went to pick her up. I went south, right? And then I had to come back north to go to the party, right? And then I had to, first to begin, I have to leave work. I have to drive east to where I live. And then I went south later on that day, that night, to pick her up. And then I went north to the party. We went north to the party. After the party, I had to drive south to drop her off, and then I had to come back east to go home. Okay? So, on my way to take her home, like I said before, I fell asleep. She was sleeping. I know she was sleeping because she fell asleep before I did. Because I was driving, and I could tell if somebody's sleeping in the passenger seat, right? You didn't think I don't know how to be a rocket scientist to tell that. But at some point, I fell asleep, and like I said, the only reason I know I was sleeping was because of the vibration that the car went through, that woke me up out of my sleep, and what happened was I fell asleep. Don't know how long I fell asleep. The car started to vibrate, and I just without a clue. Remember, I'm going south, 2 lanes. Okay, I'm going south, 2 lanes. There's a median, and then 2 lanes on the other side. The car's going opposite direction. Okay? So I'm going south and fell asleep. And when the car started to vibrate, as I was opening my eyes, or while I was opening my eyes, or I can make it even worse and say before I opened my eyes, because of the vibration of the car, I turned the steering wheel one way. I just pulled the steering wheel. Listen, listen. Hear what I'm saying, please. Hear what I'm saying, please. Okay? I had no idea where I was. Listen to what I'm saying. I was sleeping. The car started to vibrate. I had no idea where I was. So I had no idea of what to do. I just turned the steering wheel in a direction. Just so happens that the direction I turned the steering wheel brought the car back onto the road, onto the same side that I was supposed to be on, going south. But the kicker was I was facing north. Okay? Because when I turned the steering wheel, hit the brake all in one. So the car spun around in the road. And I came to a stop on the correct side, going down, but my car was facing north, facing up, facing north. And there was no traffic, no oncoming vehicles. The road on both sides of the highway, as a matter of fact, because at this time I was fully conscious, scared out my skin. She was fully conscious, scared out of her skin. And I was able to, I think the car had cut off to him. I can't remember that part. May have cut off because I hit the brake so hard or whatever. Anyway, I was able to turn around in the 2-lane highway, because 2-lane highway is pretty wide. Turn around and because I had to take her home and continue on the road. Okay? We didn't say a word to each other. Not a word. It was dead silent in the car. My eyes at this point in time was wide open. Okay? Like wide open. Listen, you could have taken, you know how to say keep your eyes open with toothpicks? You could have taken 2 toothpicks and put it in my eye. Toothpicks wouldn't have moved. That's how big my eyes became. Okay, I was driving her home now. Eyes wide open, not eyes wide shut, like Tom Cruise in that movie. No, eyes wide open. Scared out my skin. And it was dead silence. Well, it was dead silence before, because obviously she was sleeping and I was sleeping too. There's nothing changing that. See, I can laugh now. But at that time, let me tell you something. There was no laughing going on, okay? Got her home safely. Took a few minutes. Got myself together and drove home. And that night always bothered me. I couldn't understand. I couldn't figure it out. I knew that I got on the right side. I got back onto the road, but I could take no credit. Listen, this is July, what date today? 10th, 2022. This happened, as I say, 93, 94, somewhere around there. There's no way, up to this very minute I'm telling you the story, that I could take credit for getting the car back on the road. I can't. No. After years later, matter of fact, not too long after, because I met God in 1995. So not long after, in my experience with him, I reflected on instances when things have happened, because I could tell you some stories about things that happened in my life that you cannot say anything else other than to say, but God. And I know many people out there who have similar stories. So I know I'm not crazy, or I know I'm not special in any kind of way. But as I reflect on that night, the only answer available, even to me right now, this very second, telling you the story, is but God. God took that steering wheel, took my hand. God made that action, brought the car back onto the road, held the traffic away so that we would get home safely. And again, that's just one story. I could tell you dozens more, many more. In before I met God and after I met God. I was reading Ecclesiastes 12 this morning, and I hope to read some of that as we go into this talk, as we go into this teaching about Father knows best. I lost my train of thought. Ecclesiastes. Solomon says to pay attention to the rod, or something to that effect. I'll read it as I said, because this is part of the lesson for today, part of the teaching for today. And I remember that moment because it was as if God used that moment as one of the moments that I could always reflect on, to remember that He's the one in charge and not me. See, Father knows best. Listen, you could deny it if you want. You can doubt it if you want. You can make all kinds of excuses if you want. The choice is yours. But the truth is not going to change. Father knows best. And one of the things I want to talk about, I have been talking about since Father's Day, is not only that Father knows best, but a father brings forth a son, right? And he brings forth a son for a specific reason. And as I was venturing into study this week, I thought about Genesis 1:26, and I thought about I said, God, Father, what did you have in mind? And many times, oftentimes you hear me say things like, we take a lot of things for granted as human beings. I firmly believe it. And you don't have to, but if you think about it for a minute, you just might begin to believe it. Human beings take way too much for granted. We take God for granted. Listen, I'm not saying human beings as talking to you. I'm saying human beings as including me. We all take God for granted. I don't care how big of a preacher you are. I don't care how small of a preacher you are. I don't care where you are. And let me just say this. The biggest thing about this teaching ministry, this prophetic ministry, is this. I'm not interested in what church you go to, what religion you belong to. I'm not interested in what your skin color is. I'm not interested in what your nationality is. I'm not interested in none of that stuff. Because guess what? God ain't interested either. God is looking at your heart. Listen, God does not look on things as mankind do. Mankind, and this is written, and we talk about this over and over again. So don't bring your black people talk, or your white people talk, or your green people talk, or your tall people, short people, or your nationality, your Jews, your Gentile. Don't bring none of that to me. I don't want to hear it. You know why? Because God is not looking at the outward appearance. God looks at your heart. Don't try to draw me into the argument. Don't try to sweeten me up because me and you the same skin color and you're trying to get me this. No. If you say you believe God or the Bible, you can't convince me of why you think black people is the people of God, or white people is the people of God, or however you want to think it, or Christians is the people of God, or Jews. And I'm doing this because those terms are broad terms, okay? Broad terms. And God is direct, God is straightforward, God is honest, and God is simple. For God so loved the world. We read it. It's I think people say it's the most popular verse in the whole Bible, from Genesis to Revelation. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son. And I've said this, and I'll say it again. Listen, you need look no higher than that. God the Father, listen, because Father knows best. And we're talking about understanding and looking and perceiving things, developing ideologies and wisdom and everything through the eyes of the Son into the heart of the Father. If you're a son and you don't know the heart of a father, I challenge your sonship. Put it like that. He gave his only begotten son so that, and here comes the kicker, black people, white people, green people, yellow people, purple people, tall people, short people, rich people, poor people, medium class people. Here's the kicker. That whosoever whosoever believes. Whosoever. Jew, Christian, Muslim. Listen, I'm not here to discuss all of that. It doesn't matter to me. Are you seeing things from his perspective? Or are you seeing things from your perspective? Or from the preacher's perspective? You know, the prophet, the pastor, the teacher, the evangelist, the apostle. You know, Paul, Peter, whomever. Whose perspective are you seeing things from? So, I question God. What were you, this Genesis 1:26 story, 1:26, 27, 20. What was that about? What is that about? And then I began to take notes. So Genesis 1, hold on, before I go to the notes. Genesis 1:26, 27, and 28, I'll read them. And I'm going to tell you right now, I like to go back and reread stuff. Because, the most dynamic thing anybody could do in life is study the Word of God. Is to get an insight into God's heart. You listen, you can't get no higher than that. You can't get no better than that. You can't get richer than that. I don't care how much money Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos or Warren Buffett, and I don't care how much money they have. You cannot get better than sitting down and reading the Word of God and studying it and talking to God. Hey, what in the world do you mean by this? Genesis 1:26, 27, and 28. Follow me. I know you read it a billion times. I didn't come to bore you, but hear me out. And God said, let us make man in our image. I want to hold on. After our likeness, hold on. We are talking about what the Father knows. We're talking about Father who knows best. This Father that we are talking about, God the Father, God the Son, and God the Spirit, He knows best. Listen, I could guarantee that. That's a money back guarantee, a life back guarantee. Not from me, from Him. This is guaranteed truth. He knows what's best. He knows who's best. He said, listen, let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the livestock, over all the earth, over every creeping thing that creep on the earth. Now, mankind is the last thing that God made, right? We're thinking as a father. Sons, if you're a son out there, listen. And fathers, if you're a father out there, listen. We know Genesis 1 to 25, God made everything. The sun, the moon, the stars. Listen, humans, we are nothing. Listen, you have never made a sun, S-U-N, or a moon, M-O-O-N, or a star. You've never made a tree. You never made a dog, a rat, or a cat. Yeah, that's what we're trying to do now. We're trying to make everything now. But all them things was here before we were here. Listen, they were here before we were here. We are talking about the human being, mankind, us, me and you, our sons and daughters, our neighbors, our friends, our enemies even. A father prepares a place for his son. What I said, we can't, listen, we ought not look further than Yeshua, right? I'm trying to take my shoes off. That's why I'm doing that. We ought not look further than Yeshua. And we're going to get to Yeshua, we're going to leave him for last. We're going to leave the best for last. When that is, I don't know. Could be today, could be next week. I don't know. But we're going to leave that for last. We're going to look at some others on this, we're climbing the steps. We're going to look at some others. A father, listen, what he was doing, the Hebraically, if you did any research or any listening or any understanding in the Hebrew words or culture or stuff like that, you may have heard that Genesis 1:1, God was building a house. So, if God is building a house, he's not building a house with a roof and a walls. No. God is, the earth is God's house. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, and all they that dwell therein. Right? God is building a house. Why is he? In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. The earth was formless and empty, and darkness was on the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters. Right? See, me, I would say that, as I have said many times before, in a different way. In the beginning, the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was on the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the surface of the waters, and God created the heavens and the earth. See? God created the heavens and the earth, and this is how he did it. God said, let there be light, and there was light. And so on and so on and so on and so on. God began, he bought the land, he graded the land, okay? He built it, he started to build. He put the roof, he put the lights, he put the ceiling. Oh gosh. He put up the walls. And after he finished building the house, he said, now I'm going to create a man and a woman, to be specific, and I will give them charge to take care of the house. So, God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion. Let them have dominion. Dominion is an interesting word. Dominion speaks of kingdom, right? Dominion is the rule of a king. Only a king can say, I have dominion over something, because that will be his kingdom. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added. said, let them have dominion. Let's look at this word dominion and see what that really means. According to BBD definition, the transliteration for the word dominion, the English word, is radar, rodor, right? And that is to rule, to have dominion, to dominate, to tread down, right? To subjugate, to cause to dominate, to scrape out. You listening? To tread down, Strong says, to break off, to crumble off, to prevail against, to reign. To rule, to take over, or to overtake. Okay? All that is what all those words fall under the word dominion. But here's the kicker. Here's a kicker. Remember, we talked about the ideal of the son. The son, the foundation, the essence, the rule of the son, rule in terms of principle, statute, commandment, if you will, the direction, the mindset, right, of the son, of a son, is to build. That's what the word means. Or daughter, right? And the daughter comes in, the woman forms a part of this. Obviously, why? Because she was taken out of him. So part of the whole building process is in her. That's why, yes, a woman could build a family by herself. But that's not, it's not the rule. It's the, what's the word? I'm looking for the word. I use it a lot. I say it a lot. I can't remember it right now. It's like that's not the foundation. That's an offset. That could happen, but that's not what is generally supposed to happen. But that is possible, is what I'm trying to say. I can't remember the word. I don't remember it. Don't worry. I will remember. God is good and faithful. So, yes, a woman, a female, can. She can. But she's not built, she's not created to do that on her own. Guess what, you men? Don't think you're giving you an excuse. We men, male, we are not also created to do that on our own. See? And the principle we have to understand is when we begin to branch off as the offshoot of what the general rule is, we operating in the flesh. We're doing things our way. The rule and Yeshua, again, you no need to look past Yeshua. See, we keep thinking about Paul as if Paul was Jesus. But Paul wasn't Jesus. Paul didn't die for you, he didn't die for me, he didn't die for none of us. Okay? Yeshua did. Okay? Yeshua, God, I forgot my train of thought. When he was asked about divorce, go in the gospel and read his answer. Thank you, Father. Go to the gospel and read the answer. He said, Moses, the lawgiver, the law writer, gave you the permission to write a bill of divorce because of the hardness of your heart. And what we do is we negate that. We negate the fact, the truth, that Yeshua just indicted us about our own hearts. See, we set that aside and we say, hey, I could divorce you if I want. Guess what? I did it. Listen, I'm not accusing you. I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying we have to get it right. Okay? We have to get it right. Yeshua said, go and read it. Moses, he gave you that authority because Moses recognized that your heart was so hard. And instead of causing you to butt up against the Father, he said, you know, I'm going to have mercy on you. I'm going to give you the ability to. But only under one or two conditions. But we don't even care about them two conditions. We do it regardless. And again, I say we. I didn't mean you or me. I mean everybody. I did it. Listen. Oh yeah, I'm ashamed. But guess what? I did it. Did being passed. Okay? But we have to learn and grow and move forward. Okay? In Yeshua explaining the foundation, exception. That's the word I'm looking for. It's the exception and not the rule. The rule is mothers, children, mother and father are supposed to build a house. That's the rule. The house is built by a man and woman together. A man and a woman together. They build a house. Because it's both in them to do that. When you go on your own, you operate in the flesh, you're building it on your own. You operating in the exception. And listen, God is merciful and great and graceful. So he may or may not be angry at you. It depends on how you're doing what you're doing. Depends on your attitude, your heart, your mentality. Okay? If you insist, you're a woman and you insist, right, that you're going to do this by yourself. You don't need no man. I don't need nobody. I've always said that. We hear that a lot. I used to hear that a lot in Christian church. As long as you got King Jesus, I don't need nobody else. The songs say that too. But that's a lie. Paul gave his wisdom. He advised. He said, hey, I wish everybody was like me. 1 Corinthians 7. I wish everybody was like me. But guess what? Even I, the great apostle Paul, knows everybody ain't like me. Everybody ain't like Jesus. Some have one gift, another have another gift. Paul explains it. Go read 1 Corinthians 7. I'm not pulling this thing up out of the sky. This is written. Okay? Yeshua told them to their face. He said, but in the beginning, that's not how it was. You all operating through the exception. What you're doing is, you don't want to look at your own heart, so you just live in the exception. That's what you do. Moses created an exception. You all accept the exception, and you all decide to follow that. But in the beginning, it wasn't so. In the beginning, Um, the two was created to be one. Oh, y'all ain't gonna like me, but it's okay. I don't mean to be offensive, but it's okay. If you could set aside your offense for a few minutes and just listen, right? Maybe, just maybe, you might be blessed. Again, we take things for granted. Not just you, not just me. All humans. Most humans, the biggest preacher, prophet, Elijah did it, Jeremiah did it, David did it, Abraham did it. Everybody does it. That's not a license for everybody to go ahead doing it. I'm just making a statement. We have to learn, we have to turn, we have to change our course of action and go the right direction. So, don't live your life based on the exception, right? Science, the theory of evolution, the whole idea that mankind evolved from amoebas and little insects or whatever you want to call them. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know. But I know a little bit. I know enough to know that in nobody's lifetime, nobody, and what I mean nobody, I mean no human being. There is no human being who can attest and say, I witnessed over a period of time that an ape turned out to be a man. Nobody. There is no eyewitness to that event. None. We all, well, those who believe that theory all say the same thing basically. Billions of years. Okay, I exist billions of years. Well, if you talking about billions of years ago, how can you prove that? By showing me what a virus does, how a virus evolutionizes itself and changes, how a caterpillar turns into a butterfly, how there are organisms out there who they are the same sex and yet still they give birth and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, but I could say that's how they were created. They were created to do that stuff. They're only doing what they were created to do. Guess what? I can tell you time and time and time again by the word of God that God created mankind. Listen, I get it. You could say, well, how do I know that's true? Look around. Where the trees come from? Where the mountains come from? Where the oceans come from? Where did the sun come from? Where did the moon come from? Where did the stars come from? And yeah, you go with your story. Well, billions and billions of years ago, the earth was nothing, and you had a big explosion, and then the earth fell into this nice circle that it is. If you look at it from however, the diagrams and stuff that you see, because you don't see no hills and stuff, you see this perfect circle, right? But suffice it to say, forget that for now. Look at the world, look at the universe, look at the telescope, look through the telescope. I told you my story about seeing the inside of my eyes, right? An explosion caused all these wonderful, awesome, absolutely majestic things to be formed. What about its Twin Towers? What about them buildings in Abu Dhabi or Dubai or Qatar. What about Qatar? They're making islands out in the ocean. They're making the islands. We created that, right? We, human beings, created everything we see on the earth right now in terms of what wasn't naturally there. We created it. We built bridges, we built planes, boats, cars. We created everything. How we do that? How did that come to be? Listen, believe what you want. Okay? I choose to believe the simpler story. Because that what you're trying to convince me of, it just doesn't make sense. I choose to believe the simpler story. And you might think I'm a fool, but just remember, God said, Paul said in the book of Romans, God takes the foolish things of this world to confound those who think they're wise. So, you could say the scientists know best. I'm saying they know nothing compared to what God knows. Me? Oh yeah, they might know more than me. But compared to what God knows, oh, they ain't nowhere close. They ain't nowhere close. But I digress. Let's move on. As I was saying, God the Father, because we're talking about Father knows best. And if you're a father out there, you should know best. You should know what's best. What's best for your house, what's best for your children, what's best for your wife, what's best for your family, what's best for you. You should know. Right? You should know. And if you don't, then I wouldn't say it's your fault. I would say you could find out. Okay, there are ways you can find out. All right. God created the whole universe. We're still in Genesis 1:26. He built his house called the universe. And then he put us in charge. Take over. So here you go. Guess what? Because he knows best. He knows exactly who he created, what he created. He knows exactly what they are going to do. He knows exactly what to say to them. Nothing is taking him by surprise. Okay? Little did Adam and Eve know that he had a plan. Because if he didn't have a plan, they would have been dead. Even though they did die. Right? You know the plan in Revelation, I think 1, 2, 3, somewhere there, where he says, before the foundations of the earth or the world, God sent his son to be crucified. So God's plan of redemption was set before creation. Because he knew what we was going to do. He ain't surprised. But I want us to understand this idea. Because he knows what he's doing, right? We have to know what he is doing. We the children, he the daddy. That's why I went to him. Verse 27, we still in Genesis, I almost said John. We still in Genesis 1, trying to finish up 27 and 28. God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him, male and female created he them. And God blessed them. See, let me read it. And God said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth, and subdue it. Have dominion again over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, over every living that moves on the earth. Okay? So we have been dominating, if you will, ruling the earth from that day. Now, even though he says dominate here, God still maintains his rulership, if you will. God still maintains his kingship, if you will. God still is king over the earth. Matter of fact, he's king over all the earth. The earth is God's and all they that dwell therein. So we are dominating and ruling not by our own volition. Listen. We are dominating and ruling because we were given authority. God. Remember, we talk about that, right? In the Satan is Satan the enemy series. See, we ruling not because we can. We rule because he allowed it. He allows us to rule. But we are only ruling for a time. Our dominance is only being exerted for a time. And we have no idea. That's to tell you how wise we are. That tell you how smart we are. We have no idea when that time is. Because Yeshua's disciple tried to ask him, can you tell us what time, what day you coming back to establish your rule? And Yeshua said, no man know the day nor the hour. Only the Father. Listen, you cannot beat God even if you try with a 50-foot pole, 2 aircraft carriers, 5,000,000 aircraft fighters, 869 billion bombers, 385,000 troops, warships, whatever. You can't beat God for nothing. You hear what I'm saying to you? You can't, listen, you can't win. Why? Because he is God. And beside him, there is no other. Not you, not me, not another. There is no one beside him. And he said that time and time again. We just don't believe him. So why? What is Yah's plan here? What's the whole thing? Is it an experiment? Is God experimenting on us? When God was sitting in his council in the book of Job, the first chapter, and they're having a conversation, because we've seen this platter throughout the biblical narrative, right? He was in a council when Jehoshaphat and Ahab met, and Ahab tried to get Jehoshaphat to go and fight against, I think wasn't the Philistines? I can't remember, but read it. We studied that some time ago, right? And in the council, God asked the question, who will be a lion spirit? No. What are we going to do? What are we going to do with this situation? And one of the spirits said, hey, I will go down and be a lion spirit. And God said, really? What you going to do? He, paraphrasing, the spirit and God had a conversation, and God said, okay, go. Do what you could do. Do what you think you could do. Do what you say. I gave permission. And the lion spirit came down and went in the mouth of the prophet, and the prophet told a lie. And Ahab took the lie and said, you see, this man is lying because he never spoken the truth to me. Never spoken the truth. So he lying. But in fact, the first thing Ahab, I think, is the first or the second thing. I can't remember the story. I don't want to go into it. But we're talking about Job. It's the same counsel is what I was getting at. Right? I try to smoothen that out, clean that up. But I couldn't get the whole story straight. Anyway, in the council with Job, because that's what we was on, and he met the angels in that council too, right? And we've seen that splattered kind of in Nimrod, in the case of Nimrod, there's a semblance of some kind of a God communicating with his council or whatever. Anyway, so there God is talking to his people, and here comes the adversary, right? The adversary, and God said, "Hey, where you been, man?" this spirit that always seems to be adversarial, oppositional, Whoa, what you doing? I'm just going to and fro, just flying about the place. Ain't done much to do. God said, God said, "Hey, what about my boy over there? He named Job. You think you could take him?" See, of course not. You have a whole hedge around it. You build a wall. You block him in. You cover him over. I can't get to him because you have him. Right? We could stop right there. We could stop right there. That alone tell you the adversary, Satan, can't do nothing. He doesn't operate on his own, cannot operate on his own. He is a puppet like everybody else. That right there. God say, "Okay, I'm going to move my walls. I'm going to take off some of my coverings. And Satan would say, let me at him. And Satan go at him. All kinds of stuff started happening to Job. Job ain't cursing God at all. Even Job's wife tell him, curse God and die. Women, man, I tell you, you all be doing some stuff. How you could tell your husband, curse God and die? You see what the man is a righteous man. Protecting his kids every day, offering up sacrifices, praying, and trying to get God to watch over his kids. And that's what you tell him? Curse God and die? What kind of woman you is? I know that didn't sound right, but still, it sounds funny though. Oh gosh, what kind of woman you is? Why you tell the man that? Curse God and die? That's the kind of advice? Wow. Anyway, Job ignored her. The adversary kept throwing bombs. Took his, bam, just throwing bombs. Job sat down, and you know the story. It couldn't change his mind. Couldn't get to him. Couldn't cause him to curse God and die. You know why? Because God said he's a righteous man. If God said, listen, read the first few verses. If God say he's righteous, the devil, Satan, the adversary, whatever you want to call him, can't make him unrighteous. It's impossible. Because God say he's righteous. Are we nuts or something? Really? Anyway, so this is not an experiment. So from a son's perspective, I'm asking Dad, what is this about? What is this Genesis 1:26 to 28? What is that about? You created a living being in your image with your kind of vision and insight and foresight, all kinds of. This is how you created this. This is how you created this human being, these two human beings. says so in chapter 2. After he created the woman, they were both naked and unafraid. Listen, naked means naked, but if you go and look, we studied that as length in another series. Go find it. Somewhere there or here, wherever. Go find it. You will see. You will hear it. The man and the woman was the wisest among their breed. They was wiser than the animals. The serpent was wisest among the animals, but the human beings was wisest among everybody, including the animals. And then, why did he create the human beings like him? Because he wants the human beings to have the mindset of a son. Well, a son, remember I said, a son incorporates woman and man, right? They're the builders. And they have to do it together. Okay? Not go their own way. You can go your own way. No. Can't go your own way. You can, I guess, yes. Can in terms of, yeah, you can go your own way. But understand, going your own way puts you against God, puts you outside the covenant, puts you somewhere over there where you could get a whooping until you either come back or you just keep going further and further and further. Then it dawned on the son. The son is a builder. And the builder, he's not thinking about building something for himself. Builder, in terms of building what is already established, foundational, fundamental. What did Paul say in the letters? I'm not building on no other foundation. I am building on the foundation that's already set. The sun, the moon, the stars, the earth, the trees, the animals, the garden, the rivers, the mountains, the valleys, the oceans. Everything was set for the sun to maintain everything. Trim the trees, pull up the weeds, play with the lions, talk to the tigers, play with the bears. Take care of, protect them, protect them, protect his wife, protect his family. That's what it means. That's what the son does. But he's supposed to build. Well, how is he going to build? Listen, verse 26, verse 27 says, he told them to be fruitful. Or verse 28, one of them. Be fruitful. I made male and female, and I want you to be fruitful. And I said before, God is simple, he's direct, he's honest, always truthful. Be fruitful by multiplying and filling the earth. Multiplying and filling the earth. Multiplying and filling the earth. What does that mean? Multiply and filling the earth. Well, in the beginning I create one male, one female. You all get together, multiply. Yes, like rabbits. Fill the earth. Yet people out there talking about there are too much human beings, and by the year such and such and such, the planet will be dissolved and ain't no human because we just spreading. God said multiply and replenish. And that's what, not replenish, sorry. God said multiply and fill. That's what we've been doing from the beginning. That's not evolution didn't tell us that. God told us that. So you out there trying to prevent people from having babies. You out there trying to to not have babies because you don't want no children. That kind of ideology, that kind of philosophy is not from God. In most cases. Again, Paul talks about gifts, right? Listen, God ain't stupid. God is not crazy. He understands what he has done. He knows what he has done. Paul says, I wish everybody was like me. But everybody can't be like me. I get that. Everybody have their own gift. But as a woman, if you have a desire, if you have desires for kids and family and stuff, that's normal. If you want to pursue a career and want to, it's not evil. What makes it evil is if you try to take what you want and want to dump it on somebody else. Tell them, well, yeah, you don't have to have no children, man. As long as you have Jesus, you're all right. Well, okay, you might want kids, and yeah, you don't want them. You don't have a desire for them. Maybe that's your gift, right? But you better be careful not to throw that desire on somebody else, and not to dissuade other people from doing what comes natural. And I use natural in quotes. Why? Because it's naturally supernatural, if you will. Because having a baby is not really natural. It's supernatural. But that's a different topic for a different day and for a different audience. Okay? And one day, this one I'm gonna have to ask you to get the kids out the room, because this one ain't gonna be for kids. It's natural, it's normal for a woman to want to be with a man and vice versa. That's normal. Again, we take things for granted. That's one of the things we take for granted. That's why one of the reasons why we're in so much trouble. Because we take the things of God for granted. I used to tell my kids all the time, I had 2 boys. I'd be like, if you like that girl, I'm telling you, you're going to the movies, you're going out, be careful where you go, be careful who you go with, and be careful what enters your mind. You want to hold hands, you want to do stuff, you know what to do, because I'm teaching you guys the right thing. I can't stop you from doing nothing because I ain't going with you. So basically, if you want to do something, you can. I'm not going to, all I can do is hope that you heard the things that I talked about and listen and obey, and you should be all right. But no. See, we don't want to do that. We want to give them stuff and say, hey, protect yourself. But they're not married. See, that's why the world is in all this chaos. Because human beings want to do things the way human beings want to do things. Okay? Simple. Human beings want to do things what human beings want to do. They want to do their own. We want to do whatever we want to do. We don't want no instructions. We don't want nobody preventing us from having fun. Ain't nobody trying to prevent you from having fun. Having fun is part of this fruit of the Spirit. But when you're doing the wrong thing outside of God, it might feel like fun. It might look like fun, but it's not fun in the long run. Oh, God, I love it. I rhymed there, that's why. According to my buddy Andrew, he used to say, oh, I just blessed myself. It was so stupid. Andrew, what's up, man? Shout out to you. Hope all is well. Anyway. So, That's what God did when he created a male and a female. I want you to take care of all this stuff. And we know this. We know this. We've heard this in churches. So it's not like we don't know. But when we begin to see it through the eyes of the Father, or through the eyes of the Son who is looking through the eyes of the Father, we understand it better. See, the Son is, God created him, like he said, to be fruitful, to multiply, to fill the earth, to have dominion over it, to take care of it. See, everything has to do with instructions, with directions for what the Son is supposed to do. The Son is not supposed to go do his own thing, build his own house, get his own. No. Everything was presented to the Son. Son had to do nothing except take care of it. He didn't have to go build nothing because it was already built. See, we understand. Yeshua said, I go to my Father's house. In my Father's house, there are many mansions, because Dad already took care of his sons. He already have residences for us. If you consider yourself a son or a daughter, he already have houses for us. But we have to understand that you're not going to get an inheritance if you're not a son or a daughter. You're not going to get an inheritance if you're not a child, authentic, legitimate. Abraham understood this. Don't want to get ahead of myself. I want to read off my notes. A son who is a builder, his mindset is not his own. His mindset is his father's. And the son adopts this mindset to the extent where he is fixed and focused on building the Father's house. Turn to Luke chapter 2. Okay? Luke chapter 2, we are going to begin to read in verse 41. Okay? The son does not have a mind of his own. The son's heart and his mind and his perceptions is fixated on what daddy wants. I'm here to fulfill my Father's kingdom, to fulfill my Father's duties, to make sure what he set in motion is done. I'm just supervising. So I'll give you enough chance to get there, because Genesis 1 is in the front of the book and Luke 2 is kind of more to the back of the book. Luke 2 and 41 reads like this. His parents, this is the parents of Yeshua. I told you, you don't have to look no further than Yeshua. In this case, we're going straight there. But in other cases, I want to kind of go steps, as I said in the beginning. His parents went every year to Jerusalem at the feast of the Passover. So his parents was obedient. They obeyed the commands. Because attending the feast or partaking in the feast of Passover is in the Torah, is in the instructions. It's part of the lifestyle of a believer. I'm going to leave that there. 42. When he was 12 years old, 12, okay? I know I'm talking, but I'm going this side of the camera. I want to stay in the middle. He was 12 years. Hebraically, 12, around 12, 13, 14 is what they do. They call them. The boy becomes, he's bar mitzvahed. You know, He's transitioned from boyhood to kind of manhood, if you will, right? Symbolically, not physically, of course. And the girl is transitioned into be Bath Mitzvah. The boy is Bar, B-A-R, Bar Mitzvah, and the girl is Bath, B-A-T-H, because she's a female. Anyway, let's continue. He was 12 years old. And they went up to Jerusalem according to the custom of the feast. And when they had fulfilled the days, right? Because Passover is 1 day. And then they have the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which is 7 days. And some people include Passover in the 7 days and whatever. So it's about a week later. Where was I? Oh, there it is. As they were, and when they had fulfilled the days, as they were returning, like going back home, the boy Yeshua stayed behind in Jerusalem. And Joseph and the boy's mother didn't know about it. Really? If that happened today, they would have been jailed, put to jail. You abandoned your child, 12 years old. You mean to say you went to a feast, 7 days gone, you going back home and you went check to see where your child is? But that's not what we're focusing on. I just threw that in there because that's what happened. But supposing him to be in the company, they went a day's journey and they looked for him among their relatives and acquaintances. So it would seem here as though it's not just Joseph and Mary and the boy. It would seem as though it was a whole caravan of people, right? Maybe a whole bunch of families from the neighborhood. Because remember, at the Feast of Passover, one of the instructions is, if you have a small family, you ought to kill one size sheep. And if you have a large family, you have to kill the lamb, the sacrifice. The offering has to be for the size of the family, right? So if Jesus had brothers and sisters, then it's a bigger sheep. If it's just him alone, it's a smaller sheep. But if they're in a whole caravan, if it's 15, 20 of them because of different neighbors or cousins or whatever, right? Then it's very well possible that they're thinking, well, he wouldn't stay. He know we leaving today, so he's got to be here somewhere. And so a whole day passed before they went kind of checking. So they went checking around, trying to find him. They're like, wait a minute, where he is? Because it's been 24 hours and we haven't seen him, so let's go find him. And when they didn't, verse 45, they returned. So after a day's journey, hey, what's up? He's not with us. None of y'all have him. Oh, we're going back. I don't know if the whole company turned back, if they alone turned back, whatever. I don't know. Just saying. So they went back. At least the mother and father we know. Went back to look for him. After 3 days, that must be just saying this parenthetically. I remember when my kids were not teenagers. What do you call it? Preteens. 7, 8, 9, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I used to coach soccer. And they were part of my team. Don't worry, I'm going somewhere. I'm going to get back to the story. It's a similar story. And we had a game once Saturday morning. And we loaded up the car, me and my wife at the time. two boys in the back, and we drove about 45 minutes. Only because of the road and where it wasn't like far, but it took a little while to get there because first wasn't sure where we was going, so we had to get directions. And so anyway, we got there. My older son didn't play. He wasn't playing. My younger son was. And I was a coach, and so I was kind of focused on coaching, right? So we played the game. The game was over. It was like in one of those parks, and in that specific park, there was only soccer fields, right? There was one big indoor field, and it was like a barnyard kind of a. It's a small field, but because they built it, they put the field in a barn, like a big barn. It looked like a barn, like a ranch, like a farmer's barn. They had a small field in there. It was in for indoor soccer. But if you know how big a soccer field is, they had like one. We played on the front one. There was 1, 2, maybe 4, 5, maybe strewn, all around the place. We played on the front field. A lot of trees and bushes around, and canal, was passing, all that stuff. So it's a nice area. Anyway, after the game, we had the team talk and team snacks and stuff like that, and we packing up and we loaded up the car. I couldn't find my older son, Joshua. I asked my wife. She's like, he was here. I said, no, he was. Like, what? Oh my goodness. I searched high and low. High and low. Went to the furthest end of the field. All around, all in the barn with the other field, all over. I had no idea where he was. Couldn't find him. Couldn't find him. We looked and we looked and we looked and we looked. And I was pissed off and scared at the same time. I don't know if anybody ever feel that way. But I'm in this zone here with Yeshua's parents. Because they ain't looking for him for 4 days. They didn't see their son. And they started to look after the first day. A day had passed, right? Yeah. They went a day's journey. Then they started to look for him. They couldn't find him. And then they went back to Jerusalem. And after 3 days, so that's, if you want to say 4 days, my attempt to find my son didn't last 4 hours. Felt like 4 days, okay? Felt like 4 days. And I was teed off and scared at the same time. I had no idea where he was. Nobody knew. We looked, boy, parents was all over the place. And I kept saying to myself, if this boy is alive, when I find him, I will skin him alive. I will tear the skin off his body. I was saying all kinds of, you really, and you're afraid, you're upset, you're mad, you're scared. Oh, it's, you feel me? I don't know if anybody out there ever felt that, but. So, I mean, and you cover the same ground, really, over and over and over again, right? And this one time, I don't know how long after, I will lie if I tell you an hour, half an hour, 15 minutes. Because this whole episode could have been just that time. I had no idea, because you lose all sense of time when it comes to stuff like that. But I was way in the back, walking, looking, calling out his name, no answer. And I was walking back to the front where the rest of people were looking. And I was in a different zone. I was in a different place. I was, in my mind, I'm talking about, not physically, walking towards the front. And I heard my wife say, "Dad," because she called me Dad. Dad, we found him. Oh gosh. Heaven help us. I tell you. I was still mad and upset. I couldn't, all the things that was going through my head, taking the skin off his flesh and all that. You can't. You can't do that. Not that you can't do it, but you wouldn't. It'll be ludicrous if you do, right? And obviously a crime. And I snatched up that boy and gave him a hug. I think I can't remember that part, what I did at that point. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't whoop him. I couldn't do anything. I was so relieved to know that he was lost, but now he's found. In the real sense. We got in the car and I told him, I said, when I get home, I will whoop your butt. I still couldn't do it. But many times after that day, I always remind him about that story. Because I was scared out of my skin. I lost it in terms of you're not in control of anything. You are at the mercy of God. Because where we were, the surroundings we were, the environment we were, any pedophile, any criminal element could have snatched up that boy. And as you hear so many times, we get the Amber Alert so many times, as you hear stories all over the world, he was in the creek, just playing in the dirt, in the mud, in the water. That's where he was, having in his own world, oblivious to everybody. And I told that story because to imagine a father and a mother looking for their child for 4 days. Think about the Amber Alerts and think about the stories you hear about parents looking for their children. And some children are adult children, and the parents are in a state of delirium. They are lost. And I said all of that to say, after 3 days, they searched and searched and searched in Jerusalem. Never been to Jerusalem. I don't know how big the city is. But from my experience, I could just imagine what they were experiencing. They found him in the temple. Verse 46. Sitting in the middle of the teachers. Both listening to them and asking them questions. Now listen, man. When I tell you, I'm right there with this father and mother because I've been there with this father, with my sons, especially that one son, because he was in a world on his own. He's still in a world on his own, doing the wrong things, but hey, I love him. I pray for him. And you know what? If God can't turn him around, I can't. I can't turn him around if God can't reach him. So guess what? All I could do is love him and hold on to that hope that God will turn him around and he'll come back home. But this is where their son was. He was in the temple. He was sitting among the teachers. And the narrative says he was both listening to them and asking questions. And verse 47, all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. This boy is 12 years old, okay? He is 12 years old. We talking about the Son. We talking about the Yeshua. We talking about the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. Yeah, that's who we talking about. And when, verse 48, when they saw him, that's appearance, they were astonished. Probably like I was. Maybe worse, maybe less. I don't know. And his mother said to him, son, why have you treated us this way? I wouldn't ask him that. I couldn't say a word. Behold, your father and I were anxiously looking for you. This is verse 48. And just like my son, my son didn't give this specific answer, but that's kind of how he was. That's kind of how he still is. Hopefully not, but he's always been like that. He didn't give this answer, but he was in his own world. This is what he said. Verse 49. He, the 12-year-old son, 12 years. He didn't cuss the parents out. No, he didn't. This is what he said. He said to them, why were you looking for me? Why are you looking for me? Didn't you know that I must be in my father's house? The King James, the old King James Version says, didn't you know that I must be about my father's business? This is 12 years old. This is the King of Kings. This is the Lord of Lords. This is the name above every name. This is the name we call, we preach, we say, Jesus, everything is Jesus. This is the Father as the Son. In other places, he said, me and my Father are one. If you see me, you see him. Listen, I am not talking trash. I'm not pulling stuff out of air. No. I am talking about the mentality of a father that's built into a son. And the mentality of the son to see everything through the eyes of a father. Why? Because Father knows best. Father knows best. He knows best. So when God created his house in the garden, when he created the world, which is his house, and then he created the male and the female, and gave them instructions of what to do and how to go about doing it, he knows what he was doing. When they fell into the trap, when they fell into sin, he knows what he was doing. That's why he could be as sarcastic as he wants by saying, oh, look, look, they think they're gods like us. Paraphrasing. It wasn't a compliment. Because he's still God. And if they were gods, he couldn't put them out of the garden. But he's showing us who he is. He still rule. He still reign. He still gives commands that we still have to follow. We have to follow it. Why do we think we could do what we want and he's going to be okay with it? Which father? I want to go back to Genesis. Which father? You know, which father you know will give his son something and don't expect his son to build on that, to take that was given to him and take care of it, and to plant it, and to take care of, and to build. Which father? Not the prodigal son? See, we look at it, well, his father gave him his inheritance. So yeah, but you think that was his inheritance? You think that's where the father's heart was? In money? In fame and fortune? In Wall Street? You think that's where the father's heart is? No. The father's heart is in the yearning for the son to see things through the eyes of the father. And when the son, sitting in the pig pen, recognized, wait a second, I'm here eating crap, and the servants in my father's house eating steaks. Which father you know is going to give his son everything that he has if his son has no intention of taking care of and building and doing what a son is supposed to do? Which father? Yeah, but Keith, that's what he did with the first man. Yeah, that's what the prodigal father did too. That's what the son of the father of the son did. But that wasn't the inheritance. That's not the inheritance. That's a test. I'm going to put you here. Because you have to prove to me. You have to earn the right. And I know you all don't like that word. I know you don't like that word, earn. Oh, we had to do nothing. Jesus paid it all. No, Jesus led the way in showing us how to do what we have to do. He was in front. He led the way. And he did it perfectly. That's not an excuse for you to do what you want to do and don't do what he did. Paul said, follow me as I follow Christ. Paul said it. Paul said, follow me as I follow Messiah. Listen, what he did, I am doing it. I ain't trying to do it. I am doing it. Follow my lead as I follow his lead. But we teach and we preach. We know how to do it because Jesus did it and he abandoned everything. He nullified everything. So we don't have to obey nothing. Paul, read the life of Paul. Obeyed. Paul went to the feast. Paul, he honored the Sabbath day. Yes, he did it all. Go read how he lived. Read how he lived. And you come back and tell me that he wasn't obeying the commandments. Every father, every human father, And God the Father himself wants his son to follow in his footsteps, wants his son to be like him. It is the only way to ensure that what the Father has built will stay built and will be even greater. Read the book of Kings and Chronicles. And such became king, and such died, and his son became king in his stead. And his son did what was right in the eyes of the Lord, like his father. Or, and such king died, and his son became king, and his son did evil in the eyes of the Lord, like his father. This is how the wheel is supposed to turn. Like father, like son. No, in our world, we say, son, go do what you want. I don't care. Be your own person. Be your own man. But that's not the right idea. That's not the right perception. That's not the right philosophy. I need to tell myself, I'm not forcing you to be like me, but I want you to understand the principle behind you being a son. It's not about forcing them to do what you're doing. It's about getting them to understand, listen, this is what you're supposed to do. A son follows in his father's footsteps. Unless his father is wicked, then the son has to deviate, turn, and follow another man who was doing it right. And again, we don't need to look no further than Yeshua. He's the perfect man who did it right. It's the only way to ensure that what you do, or what the Father does, or what the Father plans to do, come to bear fruit. Why? And what does the fruit produce? Seed. And what does the seed do? The seed is there to bear more fruit. And how do you identify the tree? A tree is known by its fruit. You can't plant an orange tree and expect to get grapefruit. Can't plant a mango tree and expect to get oranges. Can't plant an apple tree and expect to get figs. That's not how it works. And Yeshua said that time and time again. He explained it in parables. God is God. God planted a man. The man can't expect to be different. A tree is known by its fruit. And God is looking for fruit. Where is my fruit? A son, a true son, seeks that which is of the Father. He sticks to the Father's ideas, the Father's ideals, the Father's ideologies. Through thick, through thin, come hell or high water, as the old folks used to say. Again, we need to look no further than Yeshua. There are many other examples. I must be about my Father's business. 12 years old. He's locked in, zoned in, honed in. He is locked and loaded and ready to rock. 12 years old. What did he tell his disciples? Seek ye first. 12 of them. 12 male. 12 men. Why? Why does the Father insist that the Son is like that? Because the Father is not wanting to keep the inheritance for himself. The Father wants the Son to partake in this inheritance. Oh, we got some ways to go. All that the Father has belong to me. Yeshua said it. How could he make such a bold, brash statement? All that the Father has belongs to me. Because I do exactly what he does. I say exactly what he says. I don't do more or less. Me and him, we are like this. We are one. Of course, if we are one, everything he has is mine. Everything I have is his. So if I have you in the palm of my hand, nobody could take you out of mine. Nobody. Why? Because what I have in my hand is like the Father has it in his hand. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? All the Father requires is your obedience. He needs you to be obedient. You can't get inheritance if you are disobedient. The prodigal son wouldn't that get his ring and his cloak if he continued to be disobedient? You think the Father is going to go out there and pull him out of the pig pen? No. Did you see what the Father did? He gave him his inheritance, what he thought was in his inheritance, and he went his way. The Father didn't go chasing after him. Father didn't go chasing after him because he thought he got everything he needed. He thought he had. That's the prodigal son. He thought he had everything he needed. No, son. You don't have everything you need because you're not yet a son. You need to be a son to inherit what the Father has. Yeshua explains it again in the Gospel of John, chapter 8, which we're going to discuss at a later time. Maybe next time. I don't know. But for now, we will bring this to a close. You listen, okay? Only a son is going to inherit. And by son, I mean a son or a daughter. Right? Because remember I said, the word builder it incorporates the female. Right? We're not that different, people. Just so you know. The man and the woman, it's not we different physically. There's some things different. But we are closer. We are more similar than we think. We've just been taught and we've just been driven apart for ulterior motives, for different purposes, right? To cause us to lose our inheritance. And listen, it's up to you. You don't have to believe nothing I say. It's up to you. I believe it because I see it, I read it, I study it. And I know it to be true. The ball is in your court. When you hear the knock, the Spirit of God says, open the door. Entertain me. Because you might be entertaining angels unawares. Open your heart and let him come in. Renew your mind. Rethink. Change your philosophy. I'm telling you. That's what this ministry is about. No, we're not following all the nonsensical things that we were taught. We ain't looking for fame and fortune here. Because that's not real inheritance. That's not true inheritance. Because fame and fortune will accumulate dust and moth and rust, as we talked about in segments before. Turn in your Bibles to Numbers chapter 6 as we close. Numbers 6 verses 22 through 27. Reads as follows. Jehovah spoke to Moses, saying, speak to Aaron and to his sons, saying, this is how you shall bless the children of Israel. You shall tell them, Jehovah bless you and keep you. Jehovah cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. Jehovah lift up his countenance upon you, give you peace. So you shall put my name on the children of Israel, and I will bless them. Until next time, Shavua Tov, Shabbat Shalom, Bonne nuit, Buenas tardes, Buenas noches, Buenos dias, Adios, Arrivederci, peace, deuces, we out.